Strategy is a clever plan to accomplish the highest priorities. Who's recognized a strategy recently where they know that's pretty clever how they got that done? So I noticed these stadiums, right? They like to do themes, and like UT does a fabulous job of the orange and white, right? And that's a strategy to say, how united they are and how different they are and who they are. I noticed the one about 60 miles, 70 miles south usually went with the color that was different than the opposing team. And then if a big team like Georgia came, and one team, and the red and blue team was wearing blue, although there are 30,000 Georgia fans in there wearing red, it would look like they were just as dominant if they were yelling and screaming. And so they went with a clever plan this year, I noticed, in Kentucky and Georgia, and really far. They now go with the same color as the opposing team. And so the whole thing looks red on TV. Now, the rain didn't help that, Hurston, right? But they now go now we all look unified. We look more legit, and we don't really know who's screaming for what. That's a clever plan to look more dominant, I guess, and to help the team win or whatever. Saw a headline where Elon Musk said he's going to do one thing that's going to eliminate, $2 trillion. It's a clever plan. Those are clever plans, and we do that to accomplish our highest priorities, okay? Our objective today is to be able to create strategies to improve the organizations and people you serve while simultaneously improving your life. There's a form here. I'm going to put it in the chat afterwards so you have it digitally. But just to get warmed up to doing it is our real goal, and then you can do more at home, and then we can talk about it one-on-one. In the last 3 weeks of a lot of you have been in to talk about your things that you're trying to do to see where you want to go. And we're saying these are competencies. Right now, think about it this way: strategy involves knowing. You got to know what you have. That's what some people say. What do I have? What are my gifts? What have I been given? What are my talent? What's the opportunity? And then I have to do things. I have to have done enough things to know that these things pan out, and then it becomes more an unconscious competence if I'm doing these things. On a scale of 1 to 10, with this light blue line being competent, being unconsciously competent would be the goal. And here's the analogy of that when we get confused. Like, does he think about dribbling? He's just unconsciously competent about dribbling. He probably didn't even think about how to read defenses. He's just unconsciously competent going and moving to it. We want to be that way as we create clever plans. And we'll see in a minute, in some parts of our life, we're that competent. We're just clever, use what we have to get what we need. There was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer." The manager said to himself, "What shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do, so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses." So he called in each one of his master's debtors, and he asked the first, "How much do you owe my master?" 900 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, "Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 450. That's 50% discount at Walker. Then he asked, "And how much do you owe?" 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, "Take your bill and make it 800. The master commended the dishonest manager because he'd acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So, if you've not been trustworthy in handling your worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you've not been trustworthy with somebody else's property, who will give you property of your own? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. All right. That's God's perfect word, and he's saying two things. We're going to see that he's commending strategy. Now, lots of times when we look at a parable, God is the master. I mean, he's representing the master. In the parable of the prodigal son, he's the father. In the parable of the vineyards, when he calls the workers in, and some for the full day, some for the half day, he's God. Then he calls his own son, and they beat him and kill him. He's usually the master. In this case, he's not. That's one real key. All theologians agree with this, that Jesus is now just talking about how the world works. But he is commending clever plans. He is commending be shrewd, commending think clearly about creative ways to do things that are important, for sure. And then, at the end, he's telling us how to inform our strategies. The priorities and the gifts we should use for the right reason. So we're going to learn, first of all, our God, Jesus, is the most strategic leader who ever lived. He had a plan from the very beginning. I'll tell you what, it's not going to work out. In 2,000 years, we'll pay for it. And then for the next couple thousand years, we'll encompass. We don't need it. We can bring them all to heaven if we want to right now, can't we, Father, Son, Holy Spirit? We can, and yet somehow for His glory, His people getting on His mission is much more glorifying to God. And we don't understand it now, we sure are later. So it's the most strategic plan ever to give you value and worth and to make you understand who God is and what He's calling you to do. So now we're going to read it part by part and figure out how this informs strategy, okay? Jesus told His disciples, "There was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, 'What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer.' The manager said to himself, 'What shall I do now?'" Okay. Does this man need a plan? Does he need a plan? Even Harvard, on an article I read in the middle of all this, these sessions we're doing, said plenty of people intentionally and proactively and make changes and move toward what can be done for the world, but most don't do anything till they have to. Most of them don't change until they absolutely positively have to. There were more strategic plans happening during COVID, for instance, than there were ever. Hey, we got to change the way we do business. Totally. And then things really happen. So sometimes it's when we come to the end of ourselves, even companies you see bedded in, like Dyson tried to get all the vacuum cleaners makers to change and offer his product. Now said, "We like this bag model just fine." He was just trying to sell them a little piece of plastic and an invention. And when he knew they were entrenched and didn't want to change strategically, is when he said, "Okay, I guess I got to do this myself." They talked to him, maybe make $1 million or $2 and selling invention, and they talked to him right in. He wasn't about the money; he was about changing vacuums. But they made him make $5 billion. He didn't even want it. Okay, it's just what happened. But he knew, he got to the end of his job and saw something new, and Dyson, this guy's getting to the end of his job. So what needs to change right now is what you need to think about. Now, some of you, it's strategic. You've been thinking about it for 3 years, and God keeps bringing it back up. And some of you, it's something now. And then you need to put down, why do I need to change? Why does this guy need to change? When you're thinking about what needs to change, consider what needs to change the most and the impact on the timing of the change. What is the cost of doing nothing? And then what is the opportunity for the long run? And Bob Beal's strategic plan, he teaches think about the 2 or 3 things you can do to have the biggest impact on the time frame you're thinking about. So if I'm thinking a year, what are the 2 or 3 things I can change most of my work now that's going to have the biggest impact for the year? But if I'm kind of stuck, I'm having a bad day, what are the 2 or 3 things I can do this morning to make the day better? Anywhere you're doing that, just think about the time horizon. With teenagers, Wade and Walker have learned sometimes the impact is, the cost of doing nothing is actually the best. Let's just see how this plays out. He's 17, he's 19. Let's just see how this plays out. Yes? Sometimes it's better when we don't do anything. So there are strategic plans of sitting back doing nothing. This is one of God's favorites. Patience beyond belief. Patience beyond belief. He doesn't talk to us, nearly as often about the little things as we do our kids. Now move that into work. Sometimes in the workplace, a CEO of our organization just yelled at me. He yelled at me. The most he ever yelled at me, he said, "Quit helping that guy. Let him fail." I was opposed to that. So I did that. And then we had a big thing in New York in front of all the investors, and he said, "Are you helping him or not?" So he didn't say help him, but he's like, "There's a time there's to help him, there's a time not to help him." But long term, what's going to play out? What's going to happen here? That's one way to think about it, okay? My master is taking away my job, and I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm too ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. Okay. Now, the next phase of this, what are my priorities? What are this guy's priorities? And we said no judgment last week when we talked about the election, and this one, this is a fictional character. You can be as judgmental as you want. You can learn from it. We're going to see ourselves later, but I mean, we can pick on this guy all you want. He's not real, but he's very common. About to be broke. His priority is not hard work. How do I kind of get by? His priority is dignity for sure. Don't want to be embarrassed. Okay, strategy is most impactful when an organization or individual has clear priorities. When you already know, like we do life planning here, and when you know what you want, then it becomes more second nature. Well, this thing I'm about to do needs to be consistent with the thing that I'm about. And great organizations have a mission to see others flourish and meet the needs of the world. The greatest, Good to Great is built on that. Built to Last is built, those great business books are like, those that have served the world do a lot better. And that's true for Amazon as it is for Apple, as it is for companies that are not flourishing, if they're not there to serve the needs of the world. And those who follow Jesus have a calling. Who's a follower of Jesus? That's where we just kind of stretch it out and say. And we hope we invite a lot of people that are not, and we'll explain his leadership. But if you're a follower of Jesus, what's your calling? He's been saying this the whole time. It appears first in Deuteronomy in a summary of the two greatest things to do. What are they? Love God, love people. Glorify God, some of you have said. Glorify. So, God first. How is this strategy, if that's me and I have this down, how is this strategy going to impact my relationship with God? I'm going to have to go on faith on this one. It's going to impact it. It's a high risk. I impact it. Or it's going to make me, I'm going to be in a place where I'm thinking I can take care of myself. How's it going to impact it? How's it going to impact how I love other people? It's not, your specific call is to follow Jesus and love others. And we can say it again, great leaders say things lots of different ways. Love others as I've loved you. Go and do likewise. Be salt and light. Be a witness. Make disciples. Really all synonymous, because you can't do one without the other. All that's synonymous. So and then some of you would put your families next. Some of you would put work next. Some of you put church before work before church. Some of you see your biggest ministry opportunity in the workplace. That's good. Some of you see getting filled up at church. Some of you see your communities. You don't have to have 7. The less you have, the better in classic strategic planning. But then you consider the strategy's impact, or you consider how this would impact, how this change is about to happen. It's going to impact your number one priority multiple ways, most likely. It's going to impact, and for the organization, into something I'm going to do. Even something simple. If I'm a believer and I'm saying, let's change that logo, that Amazon logo, to make it smile. I can get along with that. I can see how that helps other people a little bit. Okay, so it needs to do that. Then, the clever tip there, consider your highest priorities, organizationally and personally. So if you're thinking about this for your organization, you really need 2 columns to fill it out. Write down your top priorities and write the impacts and possible outcomes of a change. How would this go? Read this one more time. We're going to look at his gifts. My master is taking away my job, and I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm too ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses. Okay, now we're looking at gifts. We're already on the back page now. See, we're moving fast. We got a lot of gifted people here. What are this guy's gifts? What's he recognizing as his gifts here? He's got good relationships. And really, before you make a big change, you really should consider your relationships. That's one of your biggest gifts. We talk about working genius and how you're gifted individually. You want to use those things, but you want to use all your relationships. And he's using the power. Cannon said it. He's using the power he has left, for sure. I have a position. I'm in this role. I have a duty to do. I have a duty, but I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it as leverage to get what I want. Okay. Great leaders take inventory of their talents and resources available to them. And you guys in this column, this is something to do all the time, like we're going to do next week. We just chose to be thankful and how we're thankful. Write down the gifts that you know you have. Write down the people in your life that are a blessing. Write down the things you know you can do well, and know those, because when you come to a point where you need to change, sometimes we get gray and foggy about, I'm just not I just don't know what to do. I'm no good. So to know those things in advance helps out, right? Which resources, have some nickels to utilize, have some people and gifts to deploy. Have these things. What are your gifts and strengths available to you? Now let's see what he does here. So he called each one of his master's debtors and asked the first, "How much do you owe my master?" 900 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, "Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 450. Then he asked the second, "How much do you owe?" 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, "Take your bill and make it 800. Okay, you see any other gifts popping out? He's got position. He knows what they need. And again, maybe we didn't say clear enough. His priority is to make sure he's welcomed later and still have status later and still can be, if I need food, they're going to help me with food. If I need rest, they're going to help me with rest. He's trying to keep favor with the people, and it's really clever. He knows each one individually. What was his strategy? Now you got to say it this way. This is how we get warmed up. What gifts did he use? And how did he use them to get what he wants? Who can say it that way? Certainly felt like his good life was running out. How am I going to extend this thing? I'm going to discount and win favor of the people so that they'll welcome me later. Okay, good. Who here? What would you do? Let's try one. If you were 30 minutes late to a very important meeting, okay, and you just now realize it's just come upon you because you're on another call or whatever reason, you make up the reason. It's a very important meeting, and just in the Waze or Google Maps says 30 minutes. What's going to be your clever strategy to not mess up the meeting any more than being 30 minutes later having the fire alarm go off? You consider quicker ways, but it's 30 minutes away. The best you've ever beaten Google Maps is 6 to 8 minutes in a 30-minute span. Okay, you know that. So then your knowledge plays into that. I've never beaten it by more than 6 or 8 minutes, and 22 or 24 minutes late is not going to be good either. So what else do I need to do? I need to quickly call in, let them know, lower expectations. Guys, I could be 35, 40 minutes, and then pop in there in 28 minutes after, and it's not as bad, right? That's a stretch. So that I'll get the least impactful. I'm under-promise one more time. Now I'll try to over-deliver even in this, because I couldn't help it. Okay, good example. Strategy, how will you do what you need to do so that you can get what you need? Okay, let's look at how Jesus evaluates this strategy. And very important, okay, the first line in this is him saying, he's looking at what the worldly situation is and he's saying something about it. Then when it says for the people of the world, he is making his commentary. Okay, so one, he's reporting, and then it's all his quote, but then he's reporting. The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Whew.
And this is a packed section.
We can't unpack that in 19 minutes. We're going to try. Okay? I got a clever plan to do it. What's he saying? Let's say some big things he's saying. Well, let's take it one by one. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of light. So two groups of people? Who are they? People who are really shrewd. People who get very, very good. Who works with people like, it doesn't take them a second to figure out what to change and do when something's down or up. And quickly redeploy that. And we're very, very shrewd about this. We're very, very shrewd about, if this is down, what I need to do to get it back in the right place. And the whole group will get together to do it. Why is he saying the people of light aren't this way? What? Those are believers. Okay. And then he gives the people of light instruction here, okay? I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself so that, see the strategy of it? When it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. What's the strategy he's recommending? He's saying our mathematical calculations of our strategy are pretty off. We're really good at being quick and fast at to figure out how to defend ourselves in this situation or do the thing we need to do to get through this quarter or this month or reevaluate the business or whatever it is, to help a child, whatever it is, we're good at figuring out. But how often do we say, how long will this last? And he's saying, who's pretty good at when something changes, they go quick, what's the economic impact of that? Who looked at the market yesterday? Who were good at what's the economic impact of this or that? Constantly, make this plan, it's a really great vacation, what's the cost gonna be? Really great this or that, what's the cost gonna be? Can't find, great big game, love, be a lot of fun with my friends, tickets too expensive. So all those things, you look at the economic impact quickly. And he's saying, think about the eternal impact always. Think about the eternal impact. Really great vacation. I'm not sure what the cost is, but boy, if I could get these kids together one more time before they all go off and split off to college, boy, it could be an unbelievable family time of me pouring into them and them being that much more ready to face the world. I want to think about the soul impact of every decision. And wealth, we use it like crazy. We're thinking about it all the time. And he's saying, take your wealth and use it toward building relationships in heaven. Everybody you're going to work with today is a soul, and they're going one place or another. And our job's not to judge and figure it out. Our job's to do the strategic thing, to love as you've been loved, and help them get there. Jesus is evaluating the shrewd manager's strategy. And so now when we rate how competent we are, how competent are we at thinking about the economic impact of a strategy? 1 to 10. Who's 8 plus? Just answer for yourself. Then when we think about the eternal impact of every single little strategy, even this 28-minute meeting, because I already am discounting it. It says, Google says 30, I'm saying 28. The impact of that, I think about the eternal impact of that. I might be thinking about losing the deal, but am I also thinking about what's the impact on these people? How am I going to love them? Where do you rate yourself there? What's the highest end? This goes back to priorities. Is it temporary or eternal? Every single moment is spiritual. You won't have a moment today that's not. We're going to wrestle with that a minute, and we've lost some time. But everything toward one thing. Put everything toward one thing is what he's saying. We're good at doing that so many ways. He's saying, put it all toward what I've got. And he makes it really clear right here. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you've not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? Is this how the world works too? It's not how salvation works, to get trusted with something and get more. It's free. It's a free gift. And yet he's calling us into something a lot better. Does the world work? Baseball, you're not going to let that kid throw a pitch if he's not ready, hadn't proven he can do it a certain way. We're not going to put him up at the biggest moment. Yes? The way you raised your children, you can do this, okay? We're going to give him a little more. A young attorney's doing something, we give him a little bit, and he gets a little more. It is the way it works, but God is saying the same thing. And the parable of Minas taught us that. We looked at it. He's offering us much, much more. Be trustworthy now with what I've given you. It's not, and Walker was making a point about, well, it wasn't the guy's. He was actually dishonestly using the other guy's stuff. What do you have that is yours? The air in my lungs. My right to stand here is not mine. You're right. It's not yours. The moment's not yours. The nickels aren't yours. The strategy, your mind to develop, it's not yours. And he's saying there's so much more glory into moving in and figuring out, okay, stay good at looking at the economic impact. Don't get worse at that. But move in to what the eternal impact of this is. And then it'll become a reflex like others. And then you're using the things that are not yours. He's going to give you something later. In the parable of Minas, he gives them 20 cities. I think it's 25 cities. Went from 10 minas to 20 minas to 25 cities to manage the kingdom. Paul is an example of somebody who turned everything around and put everything toward one thing. his business, his political authority, his religious authority, all these things he turned around and put toward one thing. He had great citizenship. He was at the highest level of everything, and had a business that he knew how to be seafaring and knew how to navigate cities. And then he flipped it around and put everything toward one thing. That's why he doesn't talk about it so much. He's saying, move in. There's a great reward for you. How many cities do you think Paul's going to have? We covered that. How much of the Europe and the Western world understands Jesus better because of Paul's faithfulness? Who understands Jesus in this room better because of Paul's faithfulness? Cities are beyond count. That it's incalculable what God is giving to those he loves and the rewards that are waiting for us. And we're sitting around on the temporary side all the time. Stop thinking temporary. Think long term. How is Jesus informing your strategy with this? There's no verse that says, store up, get it right, and then give glory to me. That doesn't exist. It's not in there. I've checked a lot. It's not there. The verse is, give me what you've got now, and I'll make something big of it. I'll cause the growth. Jesus causes the growth. It's not the pressure of, I got to do all this, and then all these kids got to come to know Jesus. A young life, is it? No, be faithful with what you have. Use it the best you can, and I'll cause the growth. And then it's going to be really rich in heaven. It's seeing those kids, the one you thought didn't get it, and running into him, and he made 18 disciples before he died. That'll be glorious. So the clever tip, consider the change needed and the impact of the possible eternal outcomes on all of your priorities. On everything I'm thinking, what's the eternal impact? Let's get good at that. Let's get unconsciously competent at considering the eternal impact of this moment, of this strategy, giving all glory to God for the most number of people. And so I create a strategy, and the benefit will be blank. It's still the same benefit. I still need to get to the meeting 28 minutes earlier, but how's it going to benefit others? I still need to find a job that better utilizes my gifts. I still need to manage my people in a way that gets them more valuable to the organization, because that's better for them. But then how's it going to help them know? This business is sinking. I do need to figure out how to move it forward, but how's it going to also impact the kingdom? For from him and through him and for him are all things, to him be the glory. That's what Hurston's saying. It's none of it's mine. It's all his. It's all from him. The power to do anything is through him, and the reason to do anything is for him. Anything. That covers everything. Covers everything, Ed. All the great theology in Romans before this, the best, you'd say, and all what to do about it from here on. This is the greatest bridge verse in the history of the Bible. Now this verse. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You got a choice to make. How often do you have a choice to make? A lot of moments. If not everyone, a lot of moments, for sure. Good wisdom. But then what's he saying? Who says, well, this is kind of a business thing, and this is a God thing, or I just need to do this way. This is the way the world works. And Jesus is saying, put it all toward him. He's saying, put it all toward him. Put everything toward him. Take this. This moment is about the nickels. We're down in nickels, and the budget needs to be balanced. But how do we do that in a way that glorifies God? Is he calling us to continue this entity? Is he calling us to continue this habit or this tradition we have as a family or whatever it is? I don't know. But is he calling us to use this moment and these resources and these gifts to build up so that they might get to eternal dwellings and to build up treasures in heaven? You can't separate it. You don't separate it. When we do separate it, we're going against him. You can't serve both. Put everything toward one thing. And I think he just hits money. It's not just money. He's making that real clear back here. Everything, every gift, every talent. Money's just the one that we think about a lot. And that's why he talks about it so much. Because we understand it. We can quickly do the math on something. He's saying, try running the math on the impact of this strategy, the impact of this decision on how it will bring glory to God, how it will serve God. How do I know for sure this is serving God? I don't. I need to get back in his word. So I got to get to His Word. I got to understand. I got to wrestle with it. And then I got to get with some friends. I got to get with some friends like Cannon and Hurston. And I got to say, what do you see in this? If it's big. And then the more I give up, the more temporary comfort and thinking it's about now and put toward Him, the better I get at it. And I offer this a lot. Nobody's ever come to my office and say, well, I did that the best I could, and I'm really mad about it. I tried to glorify God in this thing. I tried to serve God in this thing, and it didn't work. Now, I've done it mistakenly too. So it's not that we're not going to make mistakes, but if we know we put our hearts towards something, if we know we did our best to serve God, I've never had a pure motive, but if we know we did as best we could to serve Him, and we're honoring Him in this, He's going to teach us. We're going to learn that much more. Just like if you give it all at a practice, do you learn more if you give all at a practice, Wade? Yes. The guy who just gives it halfway learns the least, yes? He doesn't know what he can do. He doesn't know what he can do in the game situation. It's all a game situation. And He's saying, put it all toward one thing. Kingdom strategy is putting everything toward one thing. Lord, You're so good to us. You made us, You love us, You know the hairs on our heads, You know our thoughts in this meeting at 10 o'clock and at 4 o'clock and for the weekend, and You know the biggest strategic moment we're going to face in the next year. And You're calling us to Yourself, saying, put everything toward one thing. Help us to see You in it, Jesus. In Your name, amen.